Hi, my name's James Knapp. I'm the Health and Safety Manager for OSPRI. I normally work in the Dunedin office, but today I'm here in Wellington to discuss our emergency procedures, just in light of the recent Kaikoura earthquakes and their effect on OSPRI operations. What we're going to cover today is where you can go for information and how OSPRI will deliver information now and in the future, what to do in the event of an earthquake and a fire, what happens after a disaster from a business point of view and from a civil defence point of view, and your grab and go bags, what should be in them and where they should be. So the first thing we've got to talk about, which is the most important, is what you should do immediately in the event of an emergency. So the first one that we're relatively familiar with is fire. We drill this every 6 months, and the actions are the same for every office, but take note that the map will differ. So check with your local fire warden about where your safe assembly point is. The immediate action is simply to stand up and walk calmly via the nearest exit outside of the building and move straight to your assembly point, where you would report to a warden and then stay there until the all clear is given to leave or re-enter the building. Emergency drills have a main purpose of practice, so that when there's an emergency situation and your brain isn't functioning as it normally would, you will automatically go through the motions that you've drilled into your head through practice. That's why it's important that we do drills every 6 months, and we also will do earthquake drills in the near future as well. It's really important if you're entering a building that you're not familiar with, if you're visiting another office, to look at the exit signs and listen carefully to your induction, because you won't be familiar. We won't have practiced those drills in that location. And in your current office, in your home locations, ask yourself, could I get to the exit easily if I was crawling on the ground in thick smoke with no lights? You might want to practice that one night after work when nobody's looking. On an earthquake, drop straight away. As soon as you can, get straight on the ground. You've got 4 points of contact with the ground that way. You're not going to be knocked off your feet and you're not going to be hit by flying objects. So the most important thing to do straight away is drop to the ground. Crawl underneath some cover, like a heavy desk or table, and then hold on to it so that you don't lose it in the shaking. After the shaking stops, gather everyone together, look after any injuries, and select a leader. It's important to note that not everybody responds the same way, and line management may not necessarily be the best person to take charge in a situation like that. OSPRI's trained some civil defence wardens in emergency response, so they should know exactly what to do after an earthquake or a fire. Before leaving the building, if anybody is going to leave the building, it would pay to check that all the stairwells are serviceable and to gather information about what's happening in the wider area, what's happening with civil defence and what they want us to do. Certainly the best thing to do in this building, in the Wellington building, is to stay in the building as long as possible. Take note, if you are considering leaving the Wellington CBD, that the traffic routes to the northern suburbs are extremely vulnerable to overloading very rapidly, and they may be needed by emergency services. The coastal routes are also vulnerable to tsunami post-quake. So if you don't have to evacuate the CBD, please don't. If you are going to evacuate, make sure that you take everything that you might need home with you. It's a good idea to try and record the movements of your friends so that afterwards, if the communications networks are down, we have an idea of where everybody was going. If an event happens outside of work hours, the first priority for you should be yourself and your family. Look after your own needs first. Worry about work later. Turn on the radio and listen to what they're saying. If civil defence says to avoid the CBD or stay at home, then please do that. If we need people to come into work to carry out critical functions, we will let you know that you are required, and it will be by phone. If you are not contacted and you don't hear anything else, please stay away from the office. It's important to note that big events can be scary for all humans. Everybody gets jitters when there are earthquakes because they're completely outside of our control. The best way that we can grow confident about our ability to look after ourselves post-quake is to put in some preparation, carry out some drills and make plans. It is important to say again that it is an emergency, so the situation isn't going to be normal. One of the things that OSPRI does for all workers is provide grab and go bags so that you can take very important survival items with you on your way home. You may be walking, you may be driving, you may be biking. So these things are designed simply to get you from point A to point B. They should be available to you wherever you are. So ask yourself, do I know where I'm going to be in the event of an earthquake? Will I be in the office? Will I be in my car? Will I be at home? Will I be walking? For myself, I do a lot of travelling, so I carry my grab and go bag as carry-on. These are the things that should be in your grab and go bag. Regionally speaking, there's quite a bit of variation, and that is absolutely fine as long as it meets these minimum requirements. Extras are great. So the first thing is emergency blanket, which you need for warmth, a poncho to keep you dry, some food and water, but the food should not be too palatable so we're not munching on it during work, a dust mask to protect your health in the rubble. There'll be a lot of dust, asbestos and silica dust around, and a pair of rigger's gloves to assist you in moving things without destroying your fingers. The last thing is a source of light that doesn't require batteries, preferably. So if you need information about earthquakes or fire drills, there are a number of wardens around the company and you will know who they are. They'll make themselves known to you immediately after this induction. In every team meeting, we can discuss health and safety and comms during and after an event. You can also find additional information on our patch by watching the TV immediately after an event or listening to the radio, or one of these websites will give heaps of information about what you can do at home and at work to get prepared for a large earthquake. Now this is an important thing to cover. Health and safety is related to business continuity, and it's really important to note that there's 3 stages to business continuity post-disaster. So getting things back up and running happens in stages. The first stage is the most minimal numbers of staff exposed. All they're doing is really protecting the most critical infrastructure that we have, things like our servers, and really expensive pieces of kit that we need to keep on functioning in the future. Everyone else is not required at that stage. The second stage is continuity, which is where the critical functions are brought back into the office and carry out some level or other of service. So that would include things like the contact centre and ICT. Following that, the office will reopen for more normal business, but will still have a road to recovery. So that's the phase that you would expect may take some time thereafter to try and seize any opportunities for improvement post the event. This is also really important for you to know. OSPRI offers EAP services for support. That is quite passive, it's sitting there if you need it, but if there's some kind of particular help that you would like after a traumatic event, then please ask, because support is available, it's just that we don't know what it is that everybody needs. There's other places you can go to ask for help, health and safety reps who are bound by confidentiality requirements, and HR as well. The fourth point there about critical incident stress is that what you may find if people have suffered a traumatic or critical incident, they might start displaying some abnormal behaviour changes. They might have trouble sleeping. They may confide the fact that they are jittery, and that's absolutely normal. It's really important to get support at that stage rather than letting it develop into something called hypervigilance or PTSD. The last thing I would really like to say is that we live on some very shaky islands and on the edge of 2 large plates. So we are going to get earthquakes. We will have more in the future. It's really important to plan and prepare for them and know what to do when they happen. If you need further information, I'm just a phone call away, or you can send an email to me, which is on the screen now. Thanks very much.